nice man. So he said everybody's at home, including the radio.
You guys all set? Jay? Listen, you guys good? Good evening. Excuse me. Welcome to the meeting of the Plymouth Community School Board, School Corporation School Board for September 2nd. If you'll join me in the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item is to set the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
The only addition that we have is the consider the Indiana Secured School Safety Grant Agreement. We already have received the grant. You all always pass a resolution that allows us to apply for grants, but we all thought it was in the best interest to have to come before the board tonight to approve us receiving the grant.
With that addition, entertain a motion on the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is set. Item 1.3, audience participation. Are there any agenda items that anyone would like to speak to this evening? You'll have a chance near the end of the meeting, but thank you for being here. Section 2 is the consent agenda. Rather typical list of items on the consent agenda. Are there any items that any board member would like to pull out separately? Seeing and hearing none.
I would like to comment on a couple of retirements that have been announced.
Go for it.
One is Michelle Holloway, a teacher that I hired several years ago. And I know she's got a full year now and ain't got a bucket list for some guy by the name of Larry. But I'm sure she'll get that done. And of course, Dawn Stetler is retiring at the end of the school year, and we just want to thank them for their contributions and dedication to Plymouth schools.
I wholeheartedly support that.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes.
Echo those comments. I think we still need a motion on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions regarding any of the items listed here this evening? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us to business transactions for this evening. Our first one is Focus on Learning with Webster Elementary.
And as you can see, we have Mrs. McGuire here with, it looks like 3 of the students from Webster, am I correct? So Mrs. McGuire, would you like to tell us why you guys are here and show us a little demonstration, I think.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about Dreambox and Lexia, which are 2 different adaptive learning softwares that we purchased through the Customized Learning Grant. So we started about December of last year, and we started using Dreambox, which is math, in 1st and 4th grade. And by the end of the year, we were using that in all the grade levels. And then Lexia is for reading, and we started using that just with 1st and 4th grades at the end of the year, but all the classes are using all of those this year. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our 1st and 4th grade students.
Hi, I'm Marilla Schaefer, a 4th grader in Mrs. Goronsky's class. I'm excited to tell you about some learning tools we are using at Webster. They are Lexia and Dreambox. Lexia helps with reading, and Dreambox is for math. Lexia reading. Student choice and interest increases engagement or excitement. Certificates are earned when levels are completed. Learning coach is alerted when direct instruction is required. Extra skills practice balances the technology with writing and games, which makes it fun. Dreambox Math. Student choice and interest equals higher engagement or excitement. We earn tokens when we complete lessons, which we can spend at the in a store. Alerts learning coach when direct instruction or extra help is needed. Personalized to how long it takes us to respond and our strategies used. Encourage the most efficient strategy use. Learners and coaches. Learners or students take control of their own learning by having more choice and ways to get help. There are tools to use when we get stuck. Coaches or teachers provide instruction, guidance, and tools to help with understanding. Learners and coaches conference on their learning progress and goals as needed. Now, we have some first graders to talk about Lexi and Dreambox.
This is Hannah Scott. She's in first grade.
She's a little nervous.
I like Lexia because I love beginning sounds and stories. My name is Parker. I'm going to talk about Dreambox. You learn a bunch of new stuff. It started easy, now it's hard. It's really, really fun.
And so we interviewed some students and just asked them some questions. And so we have a little bit of a video clip here. We have a lot more clips, but for the sake of time, we try to keep it a little bit short. But if anybody wants to see more of them, we have lots more. So we just interviewed some students with the questions like, how has it helped you? What do you enjoy? And this is what different students had to say.
I really love it, and I learn about so many stuff that I get smarter and smarter.
To correct your mistakes, because when you get it wrong 2 times, it says let's try this a different one.
You can see what number you are on, and how I do is if that's the ending number, I go back those. Since all the ending numbers aren't the same, I go back like 7 or 6 there, and then it ends me up at 5, so I would get that.
Kids who don't like to learn, because then they can learn but have fun at the same time. And then they collect coins, and then whenever a teacher opening up the store, they can use their coins to buy different things like backgrounds and all those kind of things. So it's really good for kids who don't like to learn.
When I do it, it gets brain blowing.
So did anybody have any questions about that? I mean, as you can see, there are different motivational tools kind of built within that. And we were just talking to Hannah here, and she said, now, what did you say? I have to finish this one because I've done all the choice things in there. Now I have to finish that before I can move on to the next level. So it does, require them to complete certain tasks before they get to move on. But
Jerry, how long has the program been implemented?
well, this year is the first year that we started with like full implementation of both of them across the board. Last year we started with some things in 1st and 4th grade because Erica and Christy are lead teachers and they're in 1st and 4th grade. So we did more in 1st and 4th last year, but we're doing both of them, Lexi and Dreambox. And with the grant, we've been able to purchase it for this school year as well as the next school year. So.
How often do you get to do it?
We do Lexia every morning, and Dreambox it's usually at the end of the day.
Math time.
Next time.
That's what we call it then.
Hannah got to experience it some last year. Parker's just new to it all this year, and he was very anxious to share his feelings towards it. So
Kids did a nice job.
And I think like Parker, one of the things that he said was it started out easy, now it's hard. So it does adapt, to the student's skill, and it challenges them, which is new for some students who are used to not necessarily being challenged. But it does give them, some choice to work kind of their way through that. But also one thing we really like about Dreambox is the fact that not only do they work to solve the math problems, but it's really important that they work to find the most efficient strategy. So I've sat, beside students who are counting money, and it will say, is there a better way or a quicker way that you can count that? Are there things you can group together? And it does look at how long does it take them to solve the problem, or what strategies are they using. So it really gets to, being efficient with math and showing multiple ways. So.
Is it only done within the school, or are they able to access it at home?
We don't encourage them to do it at home because we don't want them to get assistance. So we get reports as far as their time on there, time responses, and things like that. So we don't want their reports skewed for us, so we know exactly what they're capable and where they are academically. So we try to keep it just as school.
There is that capability to be able to do at home. We haven't really opened up that option just because we felt like we need to get better as a staff at utilizing it, in school. But also, we would need to do some parent education before we opened it up for students to be able to do it at home, because our natural instinct as parents is to help our children. But that would kind of falsify the reports that they were getting.
Being an adaptive learning program, it measures how long it takes them to do each problem. It measures the ways that they're doing the problem. There's a lot of analytics that goes into that, and then it creates an individual plan. If they were to go home and get help from a sibling or anything like that right now, it would skew that plan.
They ask for it all the time.
Yeah.
It's nice because it does free up the teacher. A lot of the things that are on here are kind of that lower level of skills for students, but it frees up the teacher to be able to do more conferencing with individual students or to do some higher level thinking types of things. And one thing, we worked on curriculum during the PD day on Friday, and I think Dan and Michelle could say that number sense and kind of that basic understanding of math and what numbers are seems to be something that, we really need to get a really good foundation in. Dreambox, hits those skills. It's not a problem solving, it's not those type of things, but kids get a really good sense for numbers and how you put numbers together and how you take numbers apart, how you add numbers. And they really enjoy it. So it's all kid friendly and it's exciting. It has games. And like she talked about the store where you have coins and you can buy. You can change your little avatar if you have enough money or things like that. So they really seem to enjoy that, or getting the certificates printed for them. They like that too. Anything else you guys want to say before we? No, they're good. We're done.
Stanford Dreambox Lexia is awesome!
Well, thank you all for being here. It's cool to see you so excited about learning. It's pretty darn cool.
Yes, it is. Good job. Love it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Have a great
Good
evening.
job.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Have fun at school. So nice to meet you. I think somebody's first. Is that somebody's first?
Oh, I think it's supposed to be wires.
How neat.
Pretty cool. Okay, on to item 3.2, corporation analysis of ISTAT scores.
Yeah, it's, go ahead and flip.
Can we use Dreambox for this?
Sounds awesome.
Bruce, go ahead and go to the next. Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to give a basic overview of the corporation. At our next meeting in October, the K through 4 principals will be here to talk about their buildings and specifically some things. And then the month after that, Jenny and Reed will be here to talk about theirs. This would be corporation percent passing both. This is basically, the kid doesn't count in here unless he passed both of these two tests. Still above the state average. Took a little bit of a decline last year. We had a cohort of kids who are currently 10th graders who had been performing pretty well and were taken out of this group because they didn't take ISTEP as 9th graders. So Go ahead to the next one there. In English language arts, a couple of highlights I'll mention. In third grade, Jefferson was up. It's 2 years in a row. Jefferson's been up in English language arts, and Menominee was also up in third grade as well. In fifth grade, we saw some increases in fifth grade as well too, and we also saw some increases in eighth grade. So, but then we had some decreases in the other grades that we'll talk about. In math, go ahead to math. In math, same thing. Jefferson, we had a significant, so when I talk significant, like 10% increase in math there at Jefferson. Did a great job, but other than Jefferson, we were up in fifth grade in math, but everywhere else we were down just a little bit. Cohort-wise, just really quick, one of the interesting things is that in sixth grade, when you compare sixth grade 2014 to sixth graders in 2013, so different groups of kids, but sixth grade, it looks like we actually dipped quite a bit. But when you look at cohort-wise, last year's group of sixth graders actually increased from when they were fifth graders. So there's different ways of looking at it. I mean, Michelle and I look at it from a big picture view, program-wise. But when you're looking at specific groups of kids going through, maybe more meaningful at times to compare apples to apples instead of different kids. So. There it is. We'll, like I said, we'll come back to you next month with some more specifics, like maybe where in math are we weak, what buildings, and how we're working on things. So, any overall questions? I will tell you that Menominee, we did not receive scores for fourth grade math. So. I don't know that really played a whole lot into our corporation percentage. Had the Menominee kids done well and they not counted, it would have hurt us, but we don't know for sure how they would have done. But we did not receive scores from them in math because of the testing irregularity we had last year. Now this year, just to prep you, we're giving a different test. They're still going to call it the I-STEP test, but they're changing the test. It has to be a college and career readiness test, and so the past 3 or 4 years we've been working to set scale scores and get the old test right, and now we're switching to a new test in 14-15, and then in 15-16 we'll have another new test. And so we're going to have 2 years here where there's not a lot of comparables. That's the state's shifting to their new standards and college and career readiness rules. So.
Dan, will the teachers be given a growth score even though they're taking 2 different tests?
Yes. The teachers will still get a growth score. It's yet to be determined, I think, exactly how that's going to be figured. State Superintendent Belinda Ritz has said that she does not like growth when we're comparing kids across the state. So the old way of doing it was take a kid who scored 510 as a 5th grader, let's say, and then as a 6th grader, you look at all the kids that scored 510 the year before and where they ended up as 6th graders, basically have a comparison. So if all the 5th grade 510 kids, if a lot of them scored up here and you scored here, you'd be considered low growth, and the teacher would be affected by that. That's comparing kids to other kids and not necessarily themselves. So I don't know how that's going to work. Did you set that up for me?
Could you tell?
And in addition, schools will be still rated. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still trying to decide on that as well.
And that's federal legislation. So they found out last week Indiana did receive a waiver from part of the No Child Left Behind requirements. So let's see what that means for us.
Why is there, the test hasn't changed, it's been the same, and then why is it changing in 14-15 and then 15-16? Because
federal law requires that we have a college and career readiness test. our current ISET test is not college and career readiness test. It measures basic skills. And so that's why we have to switch tests. Was that what you were asking?
Like, and then the next year, when do we have to switch to him?
Oh,
Yeah, that's what it was.
yeah, okay, so Indiana has a contract with CTV, who does our testing until the end of this school year. And so they put out a big RFP for a new testing vendor to provide college and career readiness test. So CTV this year is going to make tweaks to the old test to try to make it, and when they make it a college and career readiness test, basically it's computer manipulated items where it's not your own multiple choice, they're more difficult problems, basically.
More written,
Yeah.
applied skills.
So right now that RFP process is going on, and in December we'll know who the vendor will be for 15 and 16. The bottom line involved in
And what's happening right now.
testing, tens of millions of dollars.
Other than the not being able to compare, I think that's probably a good move though to the college and career.
Yes,
readiness. At
absolutely.
least, you know, we'll, hopefully if they don't change anymore.
And Indiana's plan was to wait until 15, 16 when their contract with CTV was up, and the United States Department of Education told them they couldn't, that they had to do it this year. So it's been, they just found that out a few months ago, so they've been trying to do all this quickly.
Dan, is there any reason that the math scores are higher than the ELI scores? I mean, it's been that way in the state, sure, at Plymouth each year.
You know, I think that as we have started to advance kids in math, so, you know, we have 7th graders taking algebra and 8th graders taking, okay, so I'm not saying that has led to that, but I think what has led to that is having a better sense of where kids are at data-wise and what they've mastered and what they haven't mastered before moving on to those things. So that's kind of created a pretty good system, I think, for that. And not that we don't have good English teachers,
I wasn't.
but I think
it's
I
just
think we have great math
consistent.
teachers.
It's consistent across both the state and here. I'm just curious if there's any information behind it.
English teachers would say the math test is easier.
And is it sheer numbers at the state? There's slight progression each year. We're progressing. You know, are we more affected by cohorts because of just the volume of state versus local? Or?
I don't know. I think everybody in the state's had some mobility, and I think that's probably affecting everybody. I mean, the state has a definite trend up. You know, from 2009, they're up in those categories.
Is this the same test?
It is. Yes. Yeah. So 2009, 2010 is basically when they normed the current test, and so that's pretty good data right there. I mean, we're going to be more affected because it's a smaller population than the state.
Yeah, that's what I presume.
You know, it's when I'm not going to spoil the principals. When the principals come and talk, I mean, we had some really big jumps, which we typically don't see. We see small percentages. We had some really big jumps up, and then we had some pretty significant jumps down. So, a lot of rhyme or reason. We did have technology issues with testing again.
That wasn't unique to us, was it?
Huh?
That wasn't unique to Plymouth, was it?
No. How you decide to test is unique. So some schools choose to test small groups, and I question honestly the validity of this. But they'll take a 7th grade group and test them on the first test in first period, test a different group of kids in second period, another group of kids in third period, fourth period. And so when there are technology issues, they have we're testing everybody at the same time, it affects all of our kids, so. But we've talked about going to a different way and spreading it out throughout the day, but just, how do you ensure that the kid first period ain't gonna tell the kid second period was on the test, and then you kind of ruin it.
That's why schools do it that way.
But that's why schools
Yeah.
do it.
Or I want mine tested first when she's fresh and instead of last.
Any other questions or comments? More to come, I guess. right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Moving on, item 3.3, have our second reading on the revised policies and guidelines.
Yeah, that's,
This
I
one.
didn't receive any questions.
Yeah. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion then on the, excuse me, my finger got to the wrong spot here, the revised policies and guidelines.
So moved.
Second.
Have motion and second to accept. Seems like most of these were statutory changes that need to be carried through, so. No other questions? We have motion second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The item that was added, the consideration of the Indiana Secured School Safety Grant Agreement.
This is actually the second grant that we have gotten since Mr. Phillips has been here. It's a $35,000 grant. There's a $35,000 match. We still have money left from the bond that we did for security, so we're matching with the bond. And some of the things that we are doing with this money is public knowledge, and some of the things that we're doing with this money is we felt like it is things that we don't necessarily want to go in the newspaper, so there's some of this that we haven't put in, but it's all going in for security, and it's all going in to protect our kids and our staff members. So my recommendation would be to pass this motion so that we can collect this money.
So moved.
Second. Have motion and second to accept. Any discussion or questions? Is this for primarily, I presume, capital expenditures?
It is.
We're not supporting operations through grants, but,
No.
okay. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3.5, consider corrected version of the 2015 budget.
Yeah, there was an error discovered within the budget forms via the DLGF gateway system that where I enter it. This error was found before advertising, and also I consulted Jeff Hoodian before any corrective actions were made. And he suggested we just have this item during this board meeting. And what it involved was two funds, the debt service fund and the pension debt service fund. There was an increase in the debt service fund of $3,933, and it took it from $3,575,562 to $3,579,495, which makes the rate go from 0.4495 to 0.4498. And then the pension debt, it increased to $2,687, so it raised it from $282,599 to $285,286, which makes the rate go from 0.0355 to 0.0358, and it was advertised with these corrections. And I have advertising.
So I think this is informational.
Yes.
And do I remember,
Do you need to approve it? Do I need
I don't
to
know.
approve it, Jeff?
Yeah, essentially what you're doing is ratifying the corrections that she made before she published, so you
Okay.
need to approve that.
you've heard the, I'm sorry, Jeff, the explanation, or entertain a motion to ratify these changes.
So moved.
Second.
Have motion and second. And do I recall these numbers reflect, I know we talked about this, the allocation of interest on our tax warrants?
On the debt service.
Debt service.
Yes, it did. It was there's two columns in this deal Jeff thing, and when you correct one column and you copy over to the next, you have, once you've done it once, you have to copy each section, and I missed section one.
And when you're talking about the rates that are reflected there, just so it's clear, those are advertised rates. Obviously, we don't know what the final rates are going to be.
Correct.
Any other questions? Have motion and second to ratify the changes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 3.6, consider Michiana Behavioral Health Care Contract, 2014-15.
Yes.
What's this
This is for, Michelle and I worked on this and with Jeff Lee as well. We provide services out to Michiana Behavioral Health Care. There's a lot of requires it. And every year we have an agreement with them. And this year, I think it was the day school started, they contacted us and said they no longer wanted the aides.
I'm sorry?
They no longer wanted the aides to provide services. So, Michelle was able to move them into some open positions we had. And then they called and wanted to add an aide. And then we were unable to find the appropriate thing at this time. They were fine with that, they understood. And so we asked Jeff to add into this a deadline for when they inform us of these changes they'd like made. So that is the change that's been made in this contract.
I would so move.
Second.
Have motion and second. Any questions or discussion?
When is the deadline?
We made it June
June
30th
30th.
of the year prior to the next.
Definitely should be a deadline.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
I'm sorry?
There definitely should be a deadline.
Yeah.
That leaves everybody with the word.
So is that the only change then?
Except in the monetary change, which is altered depending on who's instructing. Yes.
Have motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Section 4, superintendent remarks.
It's, looking at our core values as I make these remarks, our commitment to students, I think, unless you didn't watch television this last week, you didn't realize that WSOI was in the middle of doing a project on World War II veterans. This project has made the study of history come alive for the students involved in the project, and it will continue to live because the project will be housed at the Marshall County Museum, and there's a chance that it could end up being in Washington, D.C. So it's, we've had a lot of good coverage on that, and that's always good to have good coverage by the news media. You know, when it's a good thing, they stick the microphones in front of the teachers and the kids, and when something bad's happened, they stick the microphone in front of me. You know, figured that one out again. 4.2, caring. You know, last year, the United Way campaign at Plymouth Community Schools was up $6,000, which was significant. And today, United Way came and met with our administrators, and Mr. Featherstone is calling the schools, and he's going to meet with the faculties, and obviously the goal is to increase that United Way again this year. So we're excited about that because you know, we help kids every day when they come to school, but we know United Way helps kids when we can't necessarily be there to help them. So, 4.3, high expectations. We've been working diligently on a new website, and we have high expectations for it to go live to the public in the next 2 months. Our goal is to provide our stakeholders with an exciting website that is easy to navigate. 4.4, teamwork. I think if you were out in the parking lot this last weekend, you saw a large number of students representing different groups and different teams working together to first prepare the parking lot and then to park cars for the Blueberry Festival over the weekend. I happen to have some inside information on that, and their profit was approximately $61,000, which is right up there at the top.
Is that the school's part?
That's the total.
Total.
So then the school will get 50% of that. Just also to, just to clarify things, that there had not been an increase in parking the fees for parking since 1993, and the agreement to raise parking this year was a joint agreement between Blueberry and the school, and so I thought it was time for that. Integrity. Conclusion of this meeting, we're going to hold a budget hearing. Part of the reason we do the budget hearing is to ensure transparency for the taxpayer out there to see the proposed tax dollars that we will be spending in the next calendar year. 4.6, enjoyment. Our fall athletic teams have started out with a great note here at the high school, or over here at the high school, and we've got at least 4 varsity teams right now sporting undefeated records. And so if you haven't had a chance to get out and watch some of the teams play, it looks like it's going to be a good season. Upcoming meetings, we have a couple of meetings on October the 7th. We have our executive session at 6 o'clock. That is where you will be meeting to go through the evaluation of the superintendent. And then there will be a regular scheduled meeting at 7 o'clock for the regular board meeting. Also, you have agendas. If you're going to the ISBA fall regional or fall conference in Indianapolis, you have an agenda. I will make sure that's a little more get you a little more information. But I wanted you to have time leaving and those types of things, so you can start making plans. Remember, I will not be going down on Sunday, but I will be coming down on Monday. And that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions? Thanks, Dan. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to make a couple of comments. I had the privilege of speaking with a couple of those veterans that participated in that program, and they were very appreciative. And I certainly commend the teachers and students. From what I've seen on TV and all the stations that picked it up, it's been very positive, and they really appreciate it. And secondly, we did get our yearbooks today, and I certainly want to thank Amy for the outstanding job, and her students, another outstanding product.
Looks like. Anything else? Any comments from audience? I know you're all here for the public hearing, so. Yeah.
I have a question about the contract with behavioral health. Are we looking for the aid that they did request? Or
They had said if it was too late, not to worry about it. And he assured me of that. He said, don't worry, we understand, we messed up.
Okay. And the second part is there something in that contract, if more students were to need that facility, do we increase that?
There's a recommended number. that's in the contract. It's not
Cap or-
yeah, it's not a cap, but there's a recommended
Okay.
number that's in that contract.
So at any time, you could refer another student and maintain this contract?
Oh, absolutely, and,
Okay.
and we, you know, if it gets to the point where we need the aid, we'll find an aid and send out there. We'll have to redo the dollars and cents of as far as, but, you know, we're trying to get school started and then going back and forth, just,
Okay.
so.
They do have technicians in the room.
Okay.
Those health technicians with them.
Any other
No,
questions?
that was it, thank you, sir.
I think we're ready for 5.1. I asked the audience. 6.1, adjournment. If there's no other questions or comments from the board, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Have a motion and a second. We do have our public hearing following immediately, so don't leave. But all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?